Welcome to the Layman Seminary. We're continuing my debate preparation for my debate with Travis Thomas. It's going to be February 4th. And the way that I'm preparing is I'm working through a particular book called Faith That Saves. And what we've done in the last couple videos in the series is we've gone through the lexical studies, and we're going to continue that. In other words, we're studying the word faith as is used throughout the Bible. Okay. And so normally whenever you do a word study, what you want to do is you want to determine the semantic range. In other words, the range of meaning, the possibilities of meaning, the way the word can be used. You would go to classical Greek, if you're doing Greek, of course, and the Little Scott Jones lexicon is helpful for that. Then you would move into Septuagint Greek and find out how it's being used there. And we're still in that portion right now to an extent because we're going to be focusing on synonyms and antonyms of the word today. Then Koine Greek, Moulton and Milligan's lexicon, where basically they're dealing with the papyri and then New Testament usage. And that's the process as far as how you do the word study. But when you evaluate things, you of course give most weight to how the New Testament uses it, then Koine, Septuagint, and Classical. You work your way out. I've already made reference to this in previous videos, but it's a simple, good hermeneutic book that I recommend whatever level you're at. Written in the 90s, but still good. And so right here it says discover the meanings of similar words, synonyms, and opposite words, antonyms. So that's what we're going to be doing. All right, so let me move this up here. So this says pisteuo in the Septuagint is used for aman, okay? And we're going to be looking at Psalm 78:22, which in the Septuagint is 77:22. And we're going to see how there's an expansion and a restatement going on here. There's synonyms and antonyms. So Psalm 78:22 says, because they did not believe in God and did not trust in his salvation. So you have the word believe in the first line and trust in the second line. So they're in parallel with each other. The word for believe in the Hebrew is aman in the first one, and in the second one it's batak. Okay. Well, the word pisteuo in the Septuagint translates for aman, and don't worry, I'll show you all this. I just drew this slide so that you can see my claim up front. Then elpizo translates for batak. Elpizo typically translates as hope or confidence. Okay. So we're moving forward here. You can see this is the Septuagint. You have episteuosan and you have elepisan. So this is the same form of this is elpis and this is pisteuo. So you see how they're used. And then here's the equivalent in the Hebrew, he amanu, and then betaku. I think that, yeah, that's how you say it. And then you can see let's see, which passage is this? I think this is the second one. I don't know why I didn't put the verse in between it. Sorry guys. There's another verse. Let me back up and make sure I got it. It's not Psalm 78. I wonder where that thing went. But anyway, let me just give me 1 second and I'll check things here. Sorry for the dead air. Micah 7:5. That's Micah 7:5. Sorry about that, guys. And Micah 7:5. Let me just stop sharing here. I'll share it again. Bring up my Logos. Oh, don't start bogging down on me now. Okay. Well, I can't get to my Logos right now, but this is Micah 7:5. So you see right here that you have kata pisteuete. So this is a preposition attached to pisteuo, and it's translated by the same Aman. This is just the form. I think this is the imperfect form. And then elpizete for elpizo is used here, and you see it used there. So we need to go into a little bit of detail about batak. All right, you can see that the range of meaning according to this is to believe, to trust, even unsuspecting. That's interesting. To cause a trust, confident, to be bold, to be safe. But you see, mainly is translating to trust. Well, the New International Dictionary of Old Testament Theology and Exegesis says this about batak. So underneath this entry, you'll see this. The range of meaning of batak, and this is mivtak in Hebrew, is similar to that of trust in English. This is from Moberly. That is, trust can be placed in a large number of different people or things and can often be misplaced. God is the supreme object of trust, and some of the things in which people put their trust are substitutes for God. However, naturally worthy of your trust, they may appear to be in themselves. Thus, people can often put their trust in riches, in powerful people, in strongly fortified cities, or in their own cleverness. All the contexts where the writer views these as negative things, alternatives to trusting in God. In the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament, and underneath this entry for batak, we find this. It's even used for false security, but frequently batak is used to describe a person who thinks he's secure, but is deceived because the object on which he's feeling the security is unreliable. Yeah, there's nothing special about faith. It's what do you put that faith in? What is your object? What is your belief? What is your trust in? When we take all the passages in which batak is used in this sense, we get a picture of everything to which the heart of man clings on and which he believes he can build his life, but which will end in failure. Okay, so here, continuing, the community of Yahweh can know for sure that it can rely on him. These passages are held together by a common bond. He gave you a whole bunch of Old Testament passages up here. Viz, that in time of need, whatever it may be, there is no way for man to survive but to take refuge in Yahweh, to trust in him, to have confidence in him. Okay, so basically what we're seeing from this is the word batak contains the idea of fiducia. You know, we talked about the three aspects of faith that are normally talked about, which is a notia, a census, and fiducia. And then it says the Hebrew, Biblica Hebraica Stucartensia, the Hebrew text, has 117 appearances of this, but only 58 times is it translated by the Greek patho, okay, which can mean to be persuade or obey. 57 by elpizo, or its compound, or elpis, the noun. And then there's a few substantive participles where this is done, but mainly this occurs in the Psalms. So here it is. There's the range. His count was 117. This count was 116. Keep in mind that depending on when you do the study, what resource you're using, what manuscripts they're using, there may be a little bit of a variation. So that's important, that just because they give you numbers, don't necessarily run with them. And I'm not saying his numbers are wrong or these numbers are wrong. I'm just saying perhaps it's better to use a range like 116 or 117 times or something like that. Okay, so what you see here is batak is primarily used in the Psalms, almost 50 times basically. And then in Isaiah it's used, and then in Jeremiah it's used. And so the Lexicon of the Hebrew Bible, it's really helpful because it does this right here. It'll give you the Bible senses like and it says right here, for trust or faith, it occurs 104 times. We're talking about batak still, right? But this is the cool part, the Greek alignment, sort of like what the word rings do. This one tells you that patho occurs 57 times, elpizo 46 times, and elpis 6 times. So these are translating for batak. But one thing you'll notice here, there's no pistuo. So this word batak is never translated by pistuo. Okay? You can see that patho can be translating all these Hebrew words, and here's our word, batak. So it primarily translates for that. So when you divide up how patho is being used, which could be persuade, trust, or maybe even obey, you can see that out of these 57 times, it's mainly quoting Proverbs, which is this one down here. It's mainly quoting Isaiah, which goes from here to here, and Jeremiah. That's where the clustering's occurring. So you have, here's your other Greek word, apizo, that translates for batak. And you can see it's primarily translates for batak. There's other Hebrew words that it translates for as well. Concerning apizo, occurs 46 times in the verb form and 6 times in the noun form. And you can see that it's primarily used in the Psalms. And so the Psalms in the Septuagint uses apizo 38 times, patho 5 times. Now I haven't compared the numbers, okay? I'm pulling from 2 different sources, one from Che and another from this. And you need to do reference this, but it's basically saying that the strongest references for apizo and patho are coming from Psalms, which is where you're expressing your confidence, your trust, your hope, all that type of stuff. So you see that here it is, apizo, Psalms, Isaiah, and the Song of Solomon even has some. And then this is patho, and you see that concerning Psalms, it occurs right here. But remember, this is over 10 times because it's not just taking into consideration batak. So going back to the Greek alignments, the point is there's no pisteuo translating for the form of batak. Okay, so keep this in mind. Aman is translated by pisteuo, but batak is translated by elpizo, elpis, and patho. So this is the point. The Septuagint translators translated these similar terms, aman and batak, with 2 different Greek words. And so we shouldn't blur the distinction. So basically what this means is aman is the equivalent of pisteuo, and batak is the equivalent of elpizo and patho, basically, at least in those places. So again, here's pisteuo, here's aman. That's what we're talking about here. Now, this chart is not correct. I'm not totally correct. I'll put it that way, but I'm going to clarify it as we go, and you'll see the next few slides do that. So remember, early on, in the other video, we talked about how the claim is that pith is the root of both pisteuo and patho. Well, number one, we want to avoid a root fallacy, but the point is these terms are not synonymous, okay? And we also want to avoid illegitimate identity transfer, where we're just pouring the other word into the other one. This is the better description of it. This is the earlier one I did, pith, coming off of pistis, which leads to pisteuo. And then you have patho, which trust and obey on this side. So this is the point, is that patho took on a separate semantic range or domain than pistis in the Septuagint. So aman for pisteuo, but we already showed that. But don't blur the distinctions. That's the point. Now this is the better chart. Okay. So you have aman over here, and you have batak over here. And so the idea is that the green is showing how aman is related to pistis and pisteuo, where batak is related to patho. Now, elpizo and elpis could have been put in here too. I just didn't have the room at the time. I could probably insert them later. But this is the point. Aman and batak are not synonymous with each other. Not fully synonymous. Okay? And then pistis and patho are not synonymous. And pisteuo and patho are not synonymous. So we should not blur the distinctions. So this is a quote from Fred Che. Pisteuo in the Septuagint can't be demonstrated to mandate continuing belief or obedience. The semantic value is simple trust or confidence, with no durative or continuous action force inherent in the term. Now, context and other factors can bring in that, but the word itself, the continuous action, the continuous thing, it's not embedded in the verb. Now, the Exegetical Dictionary of the New Testament is mentioned by Che to give a caution. Here's the page that occurs on. It said, "Halpasteuein and pistis became the central theological terms for the appropriate relationship to God and for the Christian religion itself, cannot be clarified from the perspective of this Jewish background alone." So even though we're looking at the Septuagint, this is not the smoking gun. It says, here one must take account of a further independent Christian development prompted by events themselves. So this is the point. The Septuagint, in the Septuagint, we could trace the development of the term and the insight into the study of faith and its terminology that's related to the New Testament. But only the terms in context of the New Testament can provide a definite answer. And I didn't realize that video was going to be so short. Let me just remind you where we are in the process. Typically, I repeat this slide. Let's go back up here. So remember, we've just been talking about synonyms and antonyms in the Septuagint, okay? And we're moving forward. But thing is that when Che was discussing these things, he discussed them in a different order. And that makes sense because when you present things, when you write them and when you describe them in this order here. How it's used in the New Testament, how it's used in Koine, Septuagint, and so on. In general, there's flexibility with that. So actually, the next video is going to be dealing with syntax, but of course, I gotta prepare that one. But anyway, if you've been blessed by this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell if you want notifications. Give us a thumbs up to help with the algorithm purpose. Algorithm, I guess you say. And then share it with others if you think they'll be blessed by it. And if it was something confusing in here, just go back to the first video and walk it through and interact with me in the chats, like if you need clarification or the comments. Let's see what else I want to say. Oh yeah, please keep this ministry in prayer most of all. And if you feel that God has blessed you through this, then you can donate to the ministry through the PayPal link that's typically underneath most videos or underneath the About section of my channel. God bless.